Today we're going to be taking the engine and transmission back out of the 33 hot rod, hopefully for the last time. Hi everyone, and welcome to the channel about kit cars and other car topics. If you like what you see, please subscribe and hit the notification buttons below and share with others on social media. So I need to take the engine and the transmission out of the car, hopefully for its last time. I do not have a torque converter. I don't have the flex plate installed. And so that's the main reason. But the other reason is I actually need to remove the engine to get the firewall out of the car because I need to actually paint it for, its final paint job. And so, there's a whole sequence of events that goes on while I'm building this car. And I almost forgot that I had to do this stuff. And as you've last seen, I sent my grill off to be polished, and it was like, oh yeah, well that's off to be polished. Now's the time to move the engine out because you can't move the engine out with the grill on, and the list goes on. So anyways, I need to tear the trans tunnel out, get the gear shifter out of there, unbolt the trans, get everything kind of ready, jack the car up a certain way, get the jack stand on there. And then I'm going to call over my buddy Bob because it's always nice to have a few people while you're doing this. And then we're going to pull that thing out and hopefully figure out the torque converter and all that stuff. All right, so this is what the car looks like with the engine and the firewall out. And I will say it's really scary because it makes me feel like I just started over. The car looks totally unfinished. It's like, no. I'm 60%, if not more, all the way through this car. But once you pull those two out, it just looks so bare and bare bones and everything. So, and I don't have any, I mean, literally every space is taken up in the garage. So it's crazy. So I just threw these panels on the car, and then I got to move this whole thing temporarily for some work to be done. And so I'm not thrilled about that because I have nowhere to put any of this stuff. So what we're working on today is putting the flywheel and torque converter in the transmission. So originally when this is in the car, I just had the transmission bolted to the engine with none of that stuff in it. I have a Roadrunner 32 to 3500 stall, which is what you need for a very light car like I have. And I didn't realize this when I bought the engine, but the engine was originally married to a 4L80. And if you could see over there, there's a flex plate to the left of that wheel. There's a little center hub on that thing that spaced that out correctly to fit. So I didn't realize that it wasn't married to a 4L60, so I had to actually get a new flex plate that will perfectly marry up to this. Now, when I was going to install this, I know that there's, this thing needs a clunk in, if you will, all the way in. And we thought we had that done, but it wasn't marrying up correctly. So I figured that there's two splines, a thin one, a bigger one, and then there's actually a notch on each side that there's a little U-hole in the, the part that's coming out on the inside that has to marry to that. Once that happens, this ends up being about 0.9 of an inch in. Once that's 0.9 of an inch, and then you install this here, this is about 0.9 of an inch sticking out. And then when you marry this up, these bolt holes are going to line up perfectly with this, and you're good to go. So what I need to do today is get the flywheel on, put some trans fluid in the torque converter, get the torque converter on all the way in, and then marry these two, and then try to get the bolts in for there. There's only 3 bolts. And then I'm going to officially put in the final bolt for the harmonic balancer. And that's going to allow me to spin the flywheel wherever I need to line up the bolts for the torque converter. And then once I have that all finished, or maybe beforehand, not sure, once the flywheel's on, I'm going to torque that down to its official spec, which is an insane amount of pressure, and probably need like a breaker bar to do it. So got a few things going on, but with the engine out, there's just not a lot of space in this place. And so I'm gonna have to keep the engine out because I'm working on the firewall right now, which you can see doing some primer on the panels. And so once we get the firewall finished and back into the car, then we'll be putting the engine into the car for the final time, locking that in, and then we're going to still keep working on body work for the rest of the car. And I've done pretty well with getting the doors and, some gapping and stuff like that going on. However, it's not a one-man operation, at least unless you want to drive yourself up the wall, which I don't. But I'm going to have someone come in and help me with this. So hopefully that will happen in the next 3 weeks, and we'll have most of the raw body work done. And then it's time to actually start building the car, putting all the electrical components in, the wiring, getting the engine started, stuff like that. So, I keep saying I'm only about 60% of the way through. I don't know if that's really true. It is in the sense of, body work, painting, and all that kind of stuff. But when it actually is to actually, building the car and getting it running, everything except paint and sanding, maybe I'm 80% of the way through. So a little hard to tell, especially when it looks like this. This is just, disheartening. It looks like I just started over. So we're going to hop to it. Just as finishing up the last few seconds, you heard me talking, I was ready to start bolting on the flywheel, and the new ARP bolts that I just got don't fit. They're the right threads, but they're like 1/8 of an inch too long. And so here I am, and you could just see like this bolt fits. It's so hard with this packaging. So we're just, 1/8, 1/4 inch, something like that, just a little too long. These bolts are for the torque converter, that's fine, but these for the flywheel are not working. And, it is Gen 3, LS engine bolts, so I got to return these, I guess. And that's the other problem, they specialize and do all this packaging, It'd be nice if ARP actually had stuff in bulk where you could just walk over, verify your settings, and, and then get the right bolt instead of pre-packaged for LS only. But I get it. I understand what they're doing. So what does that mean? Well, that means that the video ends right now because there's nothing I could do, because I just bought these bolts at like 3 p.m. Saturday afternoon before the store closed. And now it's like 5 p.m. and they're not going to be open Sunday. And so now this sits in the middle of my garage for a few days until I get the proper bolts. So that's how it is, unfortunately. So we'll catch this on another video and finish this up. Have a great day.